This one's going on 3.5, 4 years. So many of those small business owners have exhausted their supply of capital, they've exhausted their supply of personal assets, and they're in need of capital infusion to help grow their businesses. I would look to opening up new sources of capital. One of the new things that's happening that President Obama has introduced is to allow people to invest in private corporations, in small business. That's what our small business owners need. They are the lifeblood of this economy in this state.
So I've been a small business owner. My father's a small business owner. My grandparents were small business owners. You definitely need to find ways to help small businesses continue to grow. I'll tell you the very first thing I would do. I would support ending the Bush tax cuts. I would support looking at the history of this country, just as you can look at history and see our economy does better when people are in labor. You can look at the history of this country and you can see economic policies that we've adapted that have given us a thriving and a stable economy. Right now, I think this election is about one side that's saying we need to hack away at programs that have made America America, and you have one side that's saying we need to do what's already worked. We need to get back to stimulating the economy by building infrastructure, by investing in our communities, and getting people back to work in those middle-class jobs.
Thank you. Ryan, if you're the nominee, how will your campaign serve as an asset to other candidates from the Democratic Party who are seeking to be elected in Beaver County and statewide?
I don't think there's any question that I'm the candidate that can do that the best. And I would encourage all of you to talk to any of these local candidates that stood up today and said that they were running, and talk to them of how my campaign has reached out. Every single one of them have been over to my office. We've helped them set up Vote Builder accounts. We're registering voters. There's races in this district that are separated by a couple hundred votes. We've registered over 5,000 new voters. So these are things that we're helping. We have weekly meetings where we have people come and teach about messaging. We've helped them. So I would say don't take my word for it. Grab one of these local candidates that stood up and introduced themselves and ask them which campaign they think benefits their campaign the most.
I think all the campaigns in this state are really important. We're talking to voters in new ways. We've never had a mother, we haven't had a Democratic woman, we haven't had a military veteran who's also been a business leader and a high school coach. We're able to talk with candidates and with voters in new ways. And I think that's how we help this entire state. Look at what's going on in the 4th district there. There's no surprise why it's getting so much attention. We have an opportunity to do the same. The difference being you've got one candidate who's got a record of proven results and another one who's running on style.
Thank you. Ms. Mackler, this is a question that has a lot of trouble with Democrats, right? A lot of active Latter-day Saint people will not vote Democrat because of the party's historical stance on abortion. How do you deal with that if you encounter somebody who feels that way?
I think you go back to the democratic values of service to community and taking care of one's own community and people and family.
I don't think you can go to the Democratic values because that's something that a lot of them don't relate to. I think you need to go to LDS values of agency and family. And the fact that I don't support abortion. I would never encourage someone to get abortion. I pretty much take the stance that the LDS Church takes, that there are certain situations where abortion is okay and necessary. And I think that there are ways to approach that issue by saying we're not trying to encourage anyone to get abortions. We're just trying to protect people and protect women's health.
Thank you. Ryan, the top of Utah Wasatch Front has pretty bad air problems. In fact, they may lose federal funding if they don't clean them up in the next year or so. What do you think Congress can or should do to help communities here deal with the problems of air pollution?
Well, we can't ignore it, which is, I think, the status quo so far with our representative. What we need to do, I've been very involved with this issue. When I had my business, I was very involved with the Utah Moms for Clean Air. I have 2 small children. That being said, I understand the importance of economic expansion, but at what cost? And so I think we need to approach things. I support regulations to improve our air quality. I think it's unbelievable that this state doesn't have a statewide emissions testing on vehicles, like in Cache Valley, the worst air quality in the country. They don't have statewide emissions testing. So these are things that we could push, a lot of it on a local level. On a federal level, I would continue to search for alternatives to energy, to clean energy. I have a car right now that with some simple body modifications, I drove home from Park City last night, I got 57 miles to the gallon. It was a new record. So, but things like that, as we continue to expand, I think will help this problem a lot.
Thank you.
The state of our state, the natural beauty of this state is what attracts a lot of tourism dollars into this state. It is a big generator of revenue for this state. So protecting and improving the air quality is of paramount importance. One of the things we need is much tighter regulation. Another thing we need is to be able to get rid of the bargaining of buying energy credits and creating more pollution. Just yesterday, I was speaking with Ted Wilson, who's the leader from Talisker on the ski link project. And he tried to convince me that the ski link would mitigate traffic in the canyons. And for every car taken out of the canyons, we would reduce pollution by a couple of thousand pounds. And I said, well, that's great. How do you balance it out with the 140 trucks that we're now going to be putting on the interstate from Uinta to Davis County that are going to be increased every day? We can't just look at one piece of this. It's a complex issue, and we have to look at it all together. But we can't allow companies to buy credits for producing bad air.
Donna, do you support the Simpson-Bowles Commission's blueprint for trying to get the deficit down over time? And if not, why, and what's your plan?
Well, I think the Simpson-Bowles plan came at the budget deficit. We need to look at both the debt problem and the deficit problem. There's two different percentages when compared to GDP. I think the Simpson-Bowles plan went a long way to addressing a lot of the challenges. There are all pieces of the federal budget need to be looked at. We need to look at both sides of the ledger. We need to look at how we increase revenues and how we decrease costs, not just discretionary, but also entitlement spending. So I believe there are some really strong provisions of it. There are provisions that I don't think are so great. I happen to be a huge supporter of public radio. Simpson-Bowles cuts out public radio. That is not something I support. I also support looking at defense. Defense is a significant part of our budget. How are we properly positioned across the world to address threats? We do need to continue to look at Social Security and Medicaid, but we need to do that in responsible ways. It's unfortunate because it's going to continue to get politicized and we're not moving forward on this. And I think Simpson-Bowles brought together different perspectives in a pretty strong plan, but we didn't have a Congress that had the fortitude to accept and pass it.